the Empire's deadliest error, targeting 3 human commanders. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had conquered over 200 species. They had crushed rebellions, destroyed civilizations, and built an empire that stretched across 1,000,000 stars. When they looked at humanity, they saw nothing special, just another weak species waiting to be conquered. High Overlord sat in his throne room and studied the reports about humans. They were soft creatures. They needed sleep. They needed food and water constantly. They felt emotions that made them weak. They cried when they lost their loved ones. They hesitated before killing. In the eyes of these were fatal weaknesses. "We will take their worlds in 3 months," announced to his war council. "But first, we must remove their military leaders. Without commanders, humans become confused and scared. They will surrender without a fight." His advisors agreed. They had done this many times before. Kill the leaders and the followers would fall apart. It was simple and effective. They identified 3 targets. Commander Danny Cole led the human fleet called Horizon's Edge. Admiral Laura Pierce commanded the defense forces of the outer colonies. Captain Sam ran a special operations team called the Reapers. According to intelligence, these 3 humans were the backbone of human military strength. Remove them, and humanity would crumble. Approved the operation personally. He called it Operation Silent Fang. 3 assassination teams would strike at the same moment. The humans would never see it coming. On the night of the attack, Commander Danny Cole was attending a diplomatic dinner on Space Station Artemis. He was laughing at a joke his best friend had just told him. Had served with Danny for 15 years. They had survived countless battles together. They were brothers in every way that mattered. Danny never saw the assassin enter the room. The alien moved like a shadow, invisible to human eyes, but saw something, a flicker of movement, a shape that did not belong. Did not think. He did not hesitate. He threw himself in front of Danny just as the assassin fired. The energy blast hit in the chest. He was dead before he hit the ground. Danny caught his friend's body and held him as the life faded from his eyes. Around them, security forces rushed to capture the assassin. But Danny did not move. He just held and watched his brother die. 2,000 light-years away, Admiral Laura Pierce was celebrating her daughter's 10th birthday. Little Emma was blowing out the candles on her cake, surrounded by friends and family. Laura watched with a mother's pride, her heart full of love. The explosion came without warning. They had planted a bomb in the building. The blast threw Laura across the room. When she opened her eyes, her ears were ringing and everything was covered in dust and blood. She found Emma under a collapsed table. The little girl was alive but badly hurt. Laura held her daughter and screamed for help. Medical teams arrived within minutes. They rushed Emma to the hospital. The doctors worked for 6 hours. Emma survived, but she would need months of treatment. She would carry scars for the rest of her life. Laura sat by her daughter's bed and felt something cold growing in her heart. It was not grief. It was not fear. It was rage. At the same time, Captain Sam was on a routine supply run in the outer territories. His support crew of 12 soldiers was with him. They were more than soldiers to Sam. They were family. He had trained them, fought beside them, and trusted them with his life. The ambush was perfect. Enemy ships appeared from nowhere and opened fire. Sam's transport was hit immediately. He managed to crash land on a nearby moon, but the damage was done. His crew was scattered across the wreckage. Sam found them one by one. Every single one of them was dead. 12 good soldiers, 12 friends, 12 people who had trusted him to keep them safe. Sam buried them himself. It took him 8 hours. He dug 12 graves with his bare hands. When he was finished, he stood among the graves and made a silent promise. They would pay for this, every last one of them. Far away in the capital, High Overlord received news of the successful attacks. His assassins reported that they had destabilized human command structure. One target lost his closest friend. Another nearly lost her child. The third lost his entire team. Was pleased. This was exactly what he wanted. Broken leaders meant a broken military. Humanity would be easy prey now. "Prepare the invasion fleet," he commanded. "We attack in 1 month." His advisors congratulated him on his brilliant strategy. They celebrated what they believed was the beginning of another easy conquest. They did not understand what they had done. Commander Danny Cole received word about the other attacks while still holding his friend's body. He learned about Laura's daughter. He learned about Sam's crew. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he gently laid down, closed his friend's eyes, and stood up. He walked to the communication console and began making calls. His voice was calm. His hands were steady, but his eyes held something that made everyone around him step back. It was the look of a man who had just decided to burn down the stars. Admiral Laura Pierce left her daughter's bedside only once that night. She went to her office and activated the emergency military network. She sent one message to every human fleet commander in the galaxy. The message was short. "They touched our families. Respond." Within hours, every human military force began to move. Ships that had been stationed in distant corners of the galaxy changed course. Soldiers on leave returned to their posts. Factories that built civilian goods switched to military production. Captain Sam was the last to respond. He finished burying his people, then walked to his damaged ship. He spent 2 days repairing it enough to fly. When he finally reached human space, he went directly to the intelligence center. "Tell me everything about he said. "Every base, every leader, every weakness." The analysts looked at each other nervously. They had never seen Sam like this. He was always calm, always professional. Now there was something terrifying in his quiet voice. The 3 commanders did not meet in person. They did not need to. They knew each other well enough to understand what had to happen next. Through secure channels, they began to plan. They believed they had broken humanity's spirit. They believed they had removed the threat of effective human resistance. They had made the deadliest error in the history of their empire. They had given 3 of humanity's most dangerous people a reason to unite, a reason to fight, a reason to show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. The silence from human space was not the silence of fear. It was the silence before the storm, the Empire's deadliest error, targeting 3 human commanders. 3 weeks passed after the attacks. The galaxy watched human space with curious eyes. Every species expected to see chaos, panic, and confusion. That is what always happened when they struck at a civilization's leaders. But human space was quiet. No emergency broadcasts, no calls for help, no signs of the expected collapse, just silence. High Overlord interpreted this silence as fear. He stood before his war council and smiled with satisfaction. His plan had worked perfectly. The humans were too scared to even respond. "They know they cannot fight us," he declared. "Their leaders are broken. Their people are afraid. We will send them our demands and they will surrender like all the others." He ordered a broadcast sent to all human worlds. His message was simple and arrogant. Humanity had 30 days to surrender unconditionally. If they refused, they would destroy every human colony and enslave the survivors. Expected begging. He expected desperate attempts to negotiate. He expected the weak human leaders to break down and accept his terms. Instead, he received a single reply from the human government. It contained only 2 words: "Come try." They were amused. Such false bravery was common among doomed species. They always pretended to be strong until the warships appeared in their skis. Then they would cry and beg like all the rest. Advanced his invasion timeline. He sent the first wave immediately. 500 warships, each one capable of destroying a planet. Their target was the human border colony of New Montana. It was a farming world with a small population. Taking it would show the humans that resistance was useless. What did not know was that the human silence had been very busy. Commander Danny Cole had spent the 3 weeks completely reorganizing the human fleet. He had created a new battle formation that no alien species had ever encountered. He had studied every record of military tactics. He knew how they attacked, how they defended, and how they thought. They relied on overwhelming force. They would charge at an enemy with superior numbers and crush them through sheer power. It was effective against most species, who would panic and scatter when faced with a larger force. Danny designed a formation that would turn this strength into a weakness. He called it the Ghost Net. It would make a small fleet appear even smaller while hiding the true strength of human forces. Admiral Laura Pierce had been equally busy. She had ordered the evacuation of 12 border colonies. They saw this as proof that humans were afraid and running away. They were wrong. Laura had turned those empty colonies into trap systems. She filled them with hidden weapons platforms, minefields, and sensor jammers. Any enemy fleet entering those systems would find themselves surrounded by invisible death. She had also called in every favor, every alliance, and every debt that humanity had ever collected. Ships came from everywhere. Former rivals sent their fleets to help. Private military companies volunteered their services. Even retired commanders came back to serve. Laura assembled over 2,000 warships in secret staging areas. It was the largest human fleet ever gathered, and they had no idea it existed. Captain Sam had taken his mission deeper into enemy territory than any human had ever gone. His Reapers, rebuilt with the best special forces soldiers humanity had infiltrated space completely undetected. They mapped every military installation, every supply route, and every communication hub. Sam identified 3 critical targets that would cripple the war machine. He positioned his teams and waited for the signal. The invasion fleet arrived at New Montana expecting easy victory. Their commander, a veteran named, looked at the human defensive fleet and laughed. He counted only 40 human ships against his 500. "This is their great defense," mocked over an open channel. 40 ships, they must know this is suicide. Danny Cole's voice came back calm and steady. "We only brought what we needed." Shook his head at the foolish human bravado. He ordered his fleet to advance in standard attack formation. The 500 ships moved forward like a giant hammer about to crush a tiny nail. They had crossed half the distance to the human fleet when Danny Cole opened a private channel. Not to but to Laura Pierce. "How is Emma?" Danny asked. Laura's voice was cold and hard. "She woke up screaming again last night. She still has nightmares about the explosion." Danny nodded slowly. He looked at the approaching fleet on his tactical display. 500 ships full of soldiers who served the empire that had hurt a little girl, an empire that had killed, an empire that had murdered Sam's entire team. "Admiral," Danny said formally, "I believe it is time to show these people what happens when you hurt our families." "Agreed, Commander," Laura replied. "All units execute Ghost Net on my mark." Across the New Montana system, hidden ships began to power up. Weapon platforms that had been disguised as asteroids activated their targeting systems. Minefields armed themselves. Sensor jammers shut down. Tactical officers suddenly started shouting in alarm. "Commander, new contacts appearing everywhere. We are surrounded." What had looked like 40 human ships was actually the visible center of a much larger formation. 200 more ships appeared from behind moons and inside asteroid fields. Weapons platforms lit up on every side. The fleet found itself flying directly into a killing box. Screamed orders to retreat, but it was too late. The Ghost Net had closed around his fleet. Danny Cole opened a final communication to the commander. His voice was quiet, almost gentle, but his words carried the weight of everything he had lost. "You should not have touched her," Danny said. He meant Laura's daughter. He meant every family that had ever destroyed. You should not have touched any of them. Then he gave the order. All ships weapons free. The Battle of New Montana began. It would be remembered as the moment the galaxy learned the true meaning of human revenge. The moment when an empire that had ruled for 10,000 years began to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. The storm had finally arrived. And it was only the beginning, the Empire's deadliest error, targeting 3 human commanders. The Battle of New Montana lasted less than 3 hours. It became the most one-sided defeat in military history. Commander Danny Cole conducted the battle like a master musician playing an instrument. Every human ship knew exactly where to be and when to fire. Every weapon platform activated at the perfect moment. Every minefield caught ships trying to escape. The 500 warships found themselves trapped in a cage of fire. They could not advance because the human fleet blocked their path. They could not retreat because weapon platforms covered their escape routes. They could not scatter because minefields surrounded them on all sides. The commander tried everything. He ordered concentrated fire on the human flagship. Danny simply moved his ships in a rotating pattern that spread the damage across his entire fleet. No single ship took enough hits to be destroyed. He ordered his fastest ships to punch through the human lines. Danny had anticipated this. He had placed his heaviest cruisers exactly where breakout attempts would happen. The fast ships flew directly into the strongest human guns. He ordered a desperate charge at the weapon platforms. Laura Pierce had designed those platforms to be almost impossible to destroy. They were small, heavily armored, and supported by automated repair drones. For every platform that destroyed, 3 more continued firing. After 2 hours, was down to 200 ships. After 2.5 hours, he had less than 100. His fleet was being destroyed piece by piece, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. "Commander," Danny Cole's voice came over the communication channel. "I am going to let you leave now. Take your surviving ships and run. Tell your emperor what happened here." Could not believe what he was hearing. In culture, you never let an enemy escape. You destroyed them completely or they would come back for revenge. "Why?" asked. "Why would you spare us?" Danny's answer was simple. "Because I want him to know we are coming. I want him to spend every moment waiting for us, knowing that nothing can stop what happens next. Go home, Commander. Tell that humanity sends its regards." 47 ships limped away from New Montana. They left behind the wreckage of 453 warships. Not a single human vessel had been destroyed. A few had taken damage, but every crew member survived. The survivors fled back to space, as fast as their damaged engines could carry them. They did not know that the real nightmare was just beginning. While the Battle of New Montana was ending, Captain Sam was beginning his mission. His Reapers had spent 3 weeks positioning themselves deep inside territory. Now it was time to strike. Their first target was the Central Communication Hub. This massive station controlled all military communications across the entire empire. Without it, commanders could not coordinate their forces. They would be blind and deaf. Sam and his team infiltrated the station through a maintenance access point. They moved through the corridors like ghosts, avoiding patrols and security systems. When they reached the main control room, they disabled the guards without making a sound. Sam planted the explosives himself. He set them on the primary communication arrays, the backup systems, and the emergency transmitters. When they detonated, the entire station went dark. The military lost the ability to talk to each other across their empire. The second target was the main fuel depot. The war machine needed enormous amounts of fuel to keep their fleets running. This depot held enough fuel to power 10,000 ships for a year. Without it, the military would slowly grind to a halt. Sam's team approached the depot using stolen transport codes. They landed without suspicion. Inside, they planted devices that would cause a chain reaction in the fuel storage tanks. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. A ball of fire bloomed in space, consuming billions of tons of fuel. The lost 60% of their strategic fuel reserves in a single moment. The third target was the primary shipyard. This was where they built their warships. It was the largest construction facility in the known galaxy, capable of producing 50 ships per month. Sam saved this target for last because it was the most heavily defended. He knew his team might not survive the attack, but they all volunteered anyway. They remembered their fallen brothers and sisters. They were willing to die to avenge them. The attack on the shipyard was brutal. Sam lost 4 of his team members breaking through the outer defenses, but they reached the construction bays and planted their explosives. The shipyard came apart in a series of massive explosions that destroyed not only the facility but also 30 ships that were under construction. When it was over, Sam stood in the wreckage and carved a message into a piece of metal that he knew they would find. The message was simple: "This is just the beginning." High Overlord received all of this news at the same time. First came the survivors from New Montana, telling him about the total destruction of his invasion fleet. Then came reports that the communication hub had been destroyed. Then the fuel depot. Then the shipyard. In the span of 12 hours, his invasion plan had been shattered, his infrastructure had been crippled, and his military had been humiliated, all by a species he had dismissed as weak and emotional. For the first time in his centuries-long life, felt something cold in his heart. He had felt anger before. He had felt frustration. But this feeling was new. It took him a moment to recognize what it was. Fear. He was afraid of the humans. Then came Admiral Laura Pierce's broadcast. It was sent to every species in the galaxy. Every world, every station, every ship received her message. She stood on the bridge of her flagship, surrounded by the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. 2,000 warships stretched behind her in perfect formation. Her voice was steady and cold as she spoke. "My name is Admiral Laura Pierce. 3 weeks ago, the Empire tried to murder me and my fellow commanders. They nearly killed my daughter. She is 10 years old. She did nothing wrong. She was just a child having a birthday party." Laura paused to let that sink in. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched in silence. "We are not declaring war on the Empire. War is what happens between equals. What we are declaring is justice. They believe that strength means cruelty. They believe that power means the right to hurt the innocent. We are going to teach them how wrong they are." She leaned forward, and her eyes seemed to burn through the screen. "Justice is coming, and nothing in this galaxy will stop it." The broadcast ended. The galaxy held its breath. And humanity began to march. The Empire's deadliest error, targeting 3 human commanders. The human fleet entered space like a force of nature. 2,000 warships moved in perfect coordination, striking military targets with devastating precision. System after system fell to the advancing humans. But what shocked the galaxy was not the speed of the human advance. It was how the humans chose to fight. Commander Danny Cole led the main fleet. He destroyed every military installation they encountered. He captured or sank every warship that opposed him. But he insisted on one absolute rule that no one was allowed to break. "No civilian casualties," Danny ordered. "Not one. If you cannot destroy a military target without hurting innocent people, you do not destroy it. Am I clear?" His officers were confused at first. They had killed millions of innocent beings during their conquests. They had bombed cities, enslaved populations, and committed countless war crimes. Why should humans show them mercy? Danny explained his reasoning during a command meeting. "We are not fighting the people. We are fighting their empire. There is a difference. Every civilian we kill becomes a reason for them to hate us forever. Every civilian we save becomes proof that we are better than their rulers. His strategy proved to be brilliant. As the human fleet advanced, something unexpected started happening. Civilians stopped running from them. They had been told that humans were savage monsters who would eat their children. Instead, they found soldiers who shared food with the hungry, medical teams who treated the wounded, and commanders who protected civilians even at risk to their own forces. In one battle, a transport ship carrying refugees was caught in the crossfire. Danny ordered his entire fleet to cease fire until the transport was safely away. 3 human ships took damage while protecting that refugee transport. Not one of Danny's officers complained. Stories like this spread across space. The humans were not monsters. The humans were merciful. The Empire had lied. Captain Sam fought a different kind of war. His Reapers operated in the shadows, striking targets that the main fleet could never reach. But Sam was just as careful about who he targeted. Military installations were destroyed without mercy. Supply depots were blown apart. Command centers were neutralized. But Sam never attacked civilian targets. His team went out of their way to avoid hurting innocent people. More importantly, Sam began exposing war crimes to the entire galaxy. His team collected evidence of atrocities committed during previous conquests. They found mass graves, prison camps, and records of genocide. Sam sent all of this information to every news service in known space. The galaxy was horrified. Species that had feared for thousands of years began to question why they had ever tolerated such evil. The Empire's reputation, built on fear and intimidation, began to crumble. Sam also assassinated key military leaders, but he chose his targets carefully. He killed generals who had committed war crimes. He killed admirals who had ordered attacks on civilian populations. He left behind evidence of their crimes so the galaxy would know why they had died. "We are not murderers," Sam told his team. "We are executioners. There is a difference. We only kill those who deserve to die." Admiral Laura Pierce fought on the political battlefield. She reached out to species that they had conquered over the centuries. Many of these subject races had been waiting for a chance to break free. Laura gave them that chance. She offered alliance, protection, and support to any species willing to rebel against the Empire. One by one, conquered worlds began to rise up. They suddenly found themselves fighting on 100 different fronts. Laura also worked to turn subjects against their own government. She broadcast messages showing the contrast between human mercy and cruelty. She shared stories of human soldiers saving civilians. She let the Empire's own people see that they had been lied to. The effect was devastating. Citizens began to question everything they had been told. Soldiers started surrendering instead of fighting. Entire units defected to the human side. The empire that had taken 10,000 years to build began to collapse from within. High Overlord watched his empire fall apart and could not understand what was happening. He had expected the humans to fight like every other species. He had expected them to commit atrocities that would unite the people against a common enemy. Instead, the humans were destroying his military while winning the hearts of his people. They were exposing his crimes while showing mercy to his civilians. They were tearing apart his empire without becoming the monsters he had hoped they would be. Tried to rally his forces. He broadcast messages calling the humans savages and a threat to galactic civilization. But his own people did not believe him anymore. They had seen the evidence of his lies. They had heard the stories of human compassion. His generals began to question his leadership. They had lost battle after battle. Their military was being systematically dismantled. Their subject races were rebelling. Their own population was losing faith in the empire. "We cannot win this war," one of his admirals told him. "The humans are not just defeating our military. They are defeating the idea that our empire is worth fighting for." refused to accept this. He had ruled for 300 years. He had crushed rebellions and conquered civilizations. He would not be defeated by a species that cried over dead friends and injured children. But deep inside, he knew the truth. The humans had done something no other species had ever accomplished. They had broken the spirit not through cruelty, but through compassion, not through fear, but through justice. Every mercy the humans showed was a weapon more powerful than any bomb. Every life they saved was a victory greater than any battle. They were not just winning the war, they were winning the future. 2 months after the campaign began, the human fleet arrived at the edge of the home system. Danny Cole, Laura Pierce, and Sam were finally together in person for the first time since the attacks. They stood on the bridge of Laura's flagship and looked at the tactical display. There was dead ahead. The final battle was about to begin. "They started this by trying to kill us," Danny said quietly. "They hurt our people. They hurt your daughter, Laura. They killed my best friend. They murdered Sam's entire team." Laura nodded. "And now we finish it." Sam looked at his fellow commanders. They had lost so much. They had every reason to want revenge, to burn thee and kill everyone on it. But that was not why they had fought this war. "We finish it," Sam agreed. "But we finish it our way, not with vengeance, with justice." Danny and Laura both nodded. They understood what Sam meant. They would show the galaxy what humanity truly stood for. Even now, even after everything, they would choose mercy over hatred. And that would be their greatest victory of all, the Empire's deadliest error, targeting 3 human commanders. 2,000 human warships darkened the skies above the population below looked up and saw their doom written in steel and fire. This was the end of everything they had known. The empire that had ruled for 10,000 years was about to fall. Families gathered their children close. Soldiers prepared for a last desperate defense. Religious leaders prayed to ancient gods. Everyone knew what was coming. This was what they would have done to humanity. They expected no mercy because they had never shown any. High Overlord stood in his throne room and watched the human fleet on his screens. 2,000 ships. Any one of them could reduce a city to ashes. Together, they could turn his entire planet into a lifeless rock. He had ruled this empire for 300 years. He had conquered dozens of species. He had never lost a war. And now he was going to watch his civilization end because he had made one mistake. He had underestimated humans. The communication console lit up with an incoming transmission. Considered ignoring it. What could the humans possibly say that mattered now? But curiosity won. He accepted the call. Commander Danny Cole appeared on the screen. He looked tired. The past 3 months had aged him, but his eyes were clear and calm. "High Overlord," Danny said. "My name is Commander Danny Cole of the Human Defense Force. I am here to offer you terms of surrender." Laughed bitterly. "Terms? What terms could you possibly offer? You have one. Destroy us and be done with it." Danny shook his head slowly. "That is not why we came here. We came for justice, not genocide. There is a difference." He explained the terms. The complete dissolution of the military. War crimes trials for those responsible for atrocities. Freedom for all conquered species. A new government chosen by the people themselves. "You would let us live," could not hide his shock. "After everything we did, after we tried to kill you, after we hurt your people." Danny's voice remained steady. "You attacked us because you thought we were weak. You thought our emotions made us vulnerable. You were wrong. Our emotions are our strength. We feel anger, but we do not let it control us. We feel grief, but we do not let it turn us into monsters. We feel the desire for revenge, but we choose justice instead." Stared at the human commander. In 300 years, he had never met anyone like this. He had never imagined that such people could exist. For a moment, something strange happened in his heart. He felt something that might have been shame. All his life, he had believed that mercy was weakness. He had built an empire on cruelty and fear, and now this human was showing him a better way. But the moment passed, had been a tyrant too long to change now. Pride and stubbornness replaced any chance of redemption. "I will never surrender," he declared. "If you want to take this world, you will have to destroy it, and I will make sure you cannot." He revealed his final weapon. Hidden beneath the planet's surface was a device that could trigger a massive explosion. It would destroy the entire planet and everything in orbit around it. Millions would die, but so would the human fleet. "You see," smiled with dark satisfaction, "you cannot have your precious justice. Either you destroy us or we destroy ourselves and take you with us. There is no mercy in this universe. There never was." Danny Cole closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, he seemed almost sad. "I was hoping you would not do this, but we prepared for the possibility." At that exact moment, the doors to his throne room exploded inward. Captain Sam and his Reapers had been in the palace for hours, waiting for this moment. They had tracked the location of the doomsday device. They had disabled it before it could even make his threat. Sam walked through the smoke and debris. He moved like death itself, silent and unstoppable. The palace guards tried to stop him. They failed. Within seconds, Sam stood directly in front of the Overlord. "The weapon is offline," Sam said quietly. "Your guards are down, your empire has fallen, it is over." Looked at the human special forces commander. This was the man whose entire team had been murdered in the initial attacks. This was the man who had spent 3 months destroying everything had built. If anyone had a reason for revenge, it was Sam. "Go ahead," said, "kill me, I know you want to." Sam looked at the defeated Overlord for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "I want to," Sam admitted. "Every day since you killed my people, I have thought about this moment. I have imagined 100 different ways to make you suffer, but killing you would not bring them back. It would not heal the pain. It would just create more darkness in a galaxy that has too much already." He stepped back and gestured to his team. "Take him into custody. He will face trial for his crimes. The galaxy will judge him, not me." Was led away in restraints. The most powerful being in the known galaxy had been reduced to a prisoner. He would spend the rest of his life answering for his crimes. The Empire formally surrendered 3 hours later. Admiral Laura Pierce personally oversaw the peace negotiations. She was fair but firm. Justice was served, but vengeance was not. Those who had committed war crimes faced trial. Those who had simply followed orders were allowed to rebuild their lives. The conquered species were freed. New governments were established. The people were given the chance to choose their own future. Many of them could not believe what was happening. They had expected slavery or death. Instead, they received freedom and opportunity. 1 year later, Danny Cole, Laura Pierce, and Sam attended the opening of a new school on the former. The school was named after those who had died in the initial attacks. Emma's classmates who had died in the explosion. The 12 soldiers Sam had buried with his own hands. Children of multiple species played together in the courtyard. Human children chased children through the playground. Former enemies laughed and learned side by side. A young girl approached Danny. She could not have been older than 8 years. Her large eyes looked up at him with innocent curiosity. "My teacher says your people could have destroyed us," she said. "She says you had the power to kill everyone on this planet. Why did you not do it?" Danny knelt down so he was at her eye level. He thought about all the lives lost in the war. He thought about how easy it would have been to choose revenge. "Because being strong does not mean hurting others," he said gently. "Real strength means protecting people even when they were once your enemy, especially then. Do you understand?" The little girl thought about it for a moment. Then she nodded seriously. "My father was a soldier. He fought against you. But he says the humans were right and the Empire was wrong. He says we should have been kind from the beginning." Danny smiled. Your father sounds like a wise man. I hope you grow up to be just like him." The girl smiled back. Then she ran off to play with her friends. Laura stepped up beside Danny. She watched the children playing together and felt something warm in her heart. Her own daughter, Emma, was recovering well. The scars would always be there, but she was learning to smile again. "We could have become monsters," Laura said quietly. "After what they did to us, no one would have blamed us." "But we did not," Danny replied. "That is what matters." Sam joined them, silent as always. The three commanders stood together and watched the future unfold before them. A future built not on revenge but on redemption, not on hatred but on hope. Across the galaxy, the story spread. The humans who had been attacked, who had lost loved ones, who had every right to seek vengeance, had instead chosen mercy. They had shown the universe that strength and compassion could exist together, that justice did not require cruelty, that the best way to defeat your enemies was to turn them into friends. They had made their deadliest error when they targeted 3 human commanders. They had expected to break humanity's spirit. Instead, they had awakened something far more powerful than anger. They had awakened humanity's heart. And that heart would change the galaxy forever.